All right, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Excited to be with everybody jumping in here. The numbers are rising quickly. Appreciate you all joining over the holidays here as we start to wrap up this year. We're so excited to recount the place that we're at as humanity here, where we're going perhaps in these coming years, and how you all have already become part of a future that we can all feel in our hearts as possible. We all know that there's a different humanity that we're capable of integrating with. We all know there's a different planet that's waiting to emerge from this reality that we call biology on planet Earth as we start to align ourselves with this journey of regeneration. So grateful for all of you jumping in here. Already 500 of you on. Thank you so much for your patience as we were a few minutes late, as technical difficulties always arise in these last minutes of any call like this as we try to get the whole globe to connect. But delighted to be with all of you. I want to give a little bit of an overview of where we're at as a planet right now. I've just done a ton of international travel this year. I've actually, I think, just crossed 400,000 miles of travel this year alone, which has been really a unique experience for me. I've spent a lot of time in Africa for the first time, spent time in India, spent time in Indonesia recently. So I've been kind of bouncing around this globe looking at the state of affairs on the ground. For example, in Indonesia, I was just spent a whole day touring the trash facilities that are there, picking up municipal solid waste from around the islands of Bali and the like. And it's stunning to stand in these places with, truckloads of trash coming in every 2 minutes all day long. Another truck rolling in and dumping, and 150 people picking through the trash, trying to sort through this disaster that we call human waste. And it's just an extraordinary look at how there's so many unintended consequences of technology out there, and there's so many unintended consequences of convenience that we practice as consumers today. It's very clear that we have transitioned humanity from a productive member of biologic systems on the planet to consumer of the planet in the way in which we've developed our relationship to nature as consumers. We see commodities rather than creativity. We see resources to be pulled towards us rather than a ubiquitous reality of energy systems that have long been generative and regenerative in their nature. And so for this state of scarcity that the consumer must believe in, we have come to only believe there's more to consume and not realize that there is so much to be recaptured and recycled into this energetic reality. And so I'm very eager for us to take a step back at the end of this year and pause for a moment. But to do that effectively, I think it's often the biggest gift I can give you, which is to remind you to pause. You may have rushed into this and you got 32 other things on your table. I've got 32 things I was trying to hope to do today. And in all that hoping and trying to do stuff, we often forget to be. And so let's just take a minute together and be together in this moment of the holidays and the end of a 2023 that we can all, I'm sorry, we're just finishing 22, aren't we? Sometimes I jump a year ahead, finishing up 2022 here and looking towards this 23 as an opportunity to really rebirth our species, our planet, and the rest. But to get there, we're going to have to learn how it feels to be physically present. So go ahead and put your feet on the ground. Let those shoulders drop away from your ears. Take a deep breath in. It always sounds so cheesy when you hear somebody say, take a deep breath, and then you do it. It's a couple seconds later, and it just feels so good. And so take that deep breath in. Let it all out. Let it all out. Let it all out. Keep pushing it out. Push it out. Push it out. Push it out. Keep emptying the belly, and then breathe in so big. Breathe it in. Expand the chest. Expand that chest. Expand the belly. Keep breathing in until you think you're going to explode, and then let it all go out again. All go out again. And take one more big breath at your pace. And let it out again. Now go ahead and invite you to just feel what it feels like to be in your body right now. Wiggle your toes. Remember, you have feet. Too oftentimes we go for weeks or months without remembering we have feet and toes. And so pull yourself down into those toes and realize you are an embodied being. You're here to be on planet Earth, and you were given toes and feet to walk on the beautiful paths of this earth and to create those paths. And so feel those toes, wiggle those toes, pump those calves with your heels going up and down. Pump those legs up, get that muscle going. Feel those legs, feel the quadriceps and the hamstrings. Feel the buttocks, maybe even stand up and stretch for a second. Go ahead and get that big stretch in. Feel that. Go ahead and give yourself a little bit of chest out. Arch the back a little bit. Open up. Sun salutation kind of feeling there. Let's get that going, because ultimately, we have to welcome another day into the biologic levels of our bodies. We need to tap into what it feels like to be alive. And for that, we can become creative again. In the moments before we took that deep breath, whole sections of your body were shut down to creativity because they were in a damage control, fight or flight state due to the sympathetic nervous system, because there was a to-do list running in your head, insecurities running to undermine your capacity to do that to-do list, a sense of inadequacy to do the holidays right, to do your, last minute, preps at work so you could get off for family next week, and you haven't ordered enough stuff for the dinner the other night, and all the things are running through your head. For all of that, you can become really disconnected from this creative capacity of the human biology. It's important to realize that it's not just the brain that needs to get into that creative space, but it's literally the whole water structure of the body, because you aren't just neurotransmitters, you're actually a system of water and carbon, and it's the cycles of carbon and water that build a regenerative system, whether it be a body, a farm, or a planet. We have to allow the flow to happen. And when we get stagnant and we don't breathe and we don't move the metabolism of the body, and we start to shut down sections of the body due to a lack of movement or a lack of vitality, the stagnancy there undermines our creative potential. And if humanity has ever needed a creative moment, we are in it right now. We have to reinvent everything: our education system, our energy systems, our information technology systems, our transportation systems, now to the whole systems of agriculture, healthcare, and the like. And so we're absolutely at this massive tipping point where we either go into our extinction in the next 60, 80, 100 years, or we reinvent everything. And so to be creative, to be in our full creative capacity, we need to breathe, and we need to get that body reconnected. We need to embody these light beings that we call souls. We need to bring this information into these bodies so that we can vibrate at a higher level. And by vibration, we can start to express the whole frequency range of what it means to be human, what it means to be alive. And that we can actually demonstrate in our clinic with a camera that we've been using for over a decade that images the human energy field. And what we see again and again is, decades before cancer shows up, there's a diminishment of vibration in certain areas of the body. This can be your low back, this can be your upper back, it can be parts of the brain, it can be organ systems, liver, kidneys, spleen, etc. You shut down these things by being stagnant in the energetic expression. And when vibration starts to slow down and you start to lose the vibrational capacity of tissue, biology quickly follows in its decrement, in its decay. And so, as we've demonstrated in clinic over and over again, to free up that vibrational capacity is the capacity of regeneration and creativity at that cellular level. Before you can go create that piece of art, that piece of music, or the new company you dream of, you need to be recreating the biology within you so that you have the reserve, the capacity to move forward into that regenerative future that is possible within you there. So for this, we need to remember to breathe, and we're going to stay connected here. I'm going to pull up a quick few images, some of which you've seen before, but I want to remind you of where we're at. And I'm going to then blow this out to the global level to show you what I've been showing people around the world, government officials down to individuals who are activists on the ground in Africa and beyond. There is an opportunity for us to absolutely recreate this planet in the most verdant state it's ever been. And never has that opportunity been more great than it is today. And so I want to bring us into that capacity here. This image you've likely seen before. This image is looking at our capacity here. Go ahead and click here. Let's see where we're at here. I got to click on this button here, I think. Give you this whole picture. All right. So these are the cancer maps in the United States predating 1996 when we went to GMO crops. And so before that, 1970s and the like, as we were keeping our public health statistics, you can see that our cancer hotspots were in the Northeast for most cancers, with the exception of prostate cancer, which is heavy in the Northwest. So Northeast, Northwest, you'll see that the lowest cases of cancer were down here in the South. And then suddenly between 1996 and 2007, we reversed that cancer map. And while cancer rates went up all over the country, it exploded down south here. So the first time in American history by 2007, we see this epicenter of cancer in Louisiana, Mississippi, and the like. And so this epicenter thing is the equivalent of something like Chernobyl. To see population statistics in cancer go into an epicenter event like this, we know we had a huge ecological disaster. And as we continued to study as a laboratory and as a group of scientists, the effects of glyphosate, I was pretty determined to show that we were going to be able to show that this molecule was really underpinning this cancer movement. And for that, I grabbed these cancer maps of 2007 and overlapped the spraying maps of glyphosate, and was a little discouraged to find out that most of the glyphosate was actually just north of this epidemic. And I couldn't quite correlate that until, of course, we found this map, which is that of the Mississippi tributary sitting in the middle of the country. This big pink blob collects that huge amount of glyphosate sprayed throughout the north and central parts of the Midwest, and pours that all down into that one river system that ends at New Orleans. And it's between Baton Rouge and Orleans, that last 90 miles of the Mississippi River, that we see the highest cancer rates in the world. And of course, now you guys have heard about the big court cases against Monsanto and against glyphosate for myeloid leukemias and the like. And this is demonstrating the rates of leukemia within the US population over that time frame from the early 1990s here. This is 1992 all the way through to 2009. So in that brief, 15-year period, you see this near exponential increase in the expression of myeloid leukemias. And the dark lines here are showing the number of acres sprayed of GMO crops with glyphosate. But that unfortunately is just the tip of the iceberg. Also, we have here bladder cancer, which is the real hallmark of a chemical exposure for a population. Bladder cancer, of course, is caused by a collection of toxin that's cleared in the urine. And glyphosate, as a water-soluble toxin, concentrates in our urine. And so we would expect bladder cancer to explode if we were adding a carcinogen to our food system and water systems by the 1990s. So this is 1996 right here, the debut of GMO. And of course, you see the dark lines going up with number of acres sprayed, and then the gold bars raising here over time as bladder cancer going through. Thyroid cancer, the most vascular endocrine organ in the body, also very prone to cancer when there's a waterborne toxin, because the amount of bloodstream that goes to that thyroid gland. Liver is the front line of the gut when it comes to injurious stuff coming through that gut lining. So not surprising, we see the same explosion of cancer happening there in the liver as we do in thyroid, bladder, and leukemia. It doesn't have to go all the way to cancer. Long before we get cancer, we get disruption of neurology. And here's looking at the rates of senile dementia in the population, with a slow linear increase going before 1996. But then with the advent of GMO, we can see this again, doubling, tripling of rates. We should have been at 20 individuals with a neurodegenerative condition by 2010. Instead, we were at nearly 82. And so we had a 4x result of senile dementias, including Parkinson's in males and the Alzheimer's in women. Sleep disorders are a good example of what seems like a more benign condition, but when you get hospitalized for insomnia, things are bad. And these are the hospital admissions for severe intractable insomnia over that same period of time, 1990s here, all the way to 2010. So this explosion of disease there. That was well known throughout the world, really, but many were starting to say that this must have something to do with chemicals in our food system. But glyphosate continued to be, protected by industry as well as regulatory committees by saying, well, there's correlation there, but there's absolutely no causation. You can show all those maps you want, but if we can't show that there's actual cause. So in 2012, we set out as a laboratory to start to show that direct mechanism of action of exactly how glyphosate causes cancer. And this is what it looks like under a microscope. So on the left, you see tight junctions, which are the protein structure that keeps cells connected to one another. It's like a Velcro type protein. And so all these green outlines are intestinal cells that are all hanging together to create a coherent membrane or barrier system to the outside world. At just a few parts per million of glyphosate, something similar to what you would see in root vegetables, or actually a fraction of what you would see in animal feed for our cattle and dogs, cat food, and the like, many times this amount of glyphosate. But nonetheless, at a few parts per million, you can see the cells blowing apart, and they're floating free of each other now with these big gaps between the cells. This is what leaky gut looks like under the microscope. But unfortunately, we've also demonstrated that it affects the blood-brain barrier, kidney tubules, and beyond. So any cell system supposed to be in coherent touch with each other will fall apart under the pressure of glyphosate as it damages that. And so this is a direct demonstration of the carcinogenic effect of glyphosate in our food and water systems. To that point, I will show you something pretty dramatic here. Is up in the upper left-hand corner of the slide, you see a few cells still intact in that gut membrane, and you can see their volume. So very large cytoplasm, small nucleus, which is the dark spot within. And then you see the separation happen. And as they separate, they become tiny very quickly. To become small that quickly, the cell has to lose most of the water from inside of the cell. When water disappears from the cell, you know you have screwed up the entire biologic system. The nucleus does not shrink, the cytoplasm does. And this high nuclear to cytoplasm ratio that you see in these tiny little cells is the hallmark of pathology of cancer. And so if you have any type of cancer, from prostate to pancreatic cancer to breast cancer or the like, the hallmark is small cytoplasmic volume, high nuclear ratio. And so that is exactly what you're seeing. And the scary thing is this is just minutes between healthy intestinal lining and a cancer cell. In medical school, I was taught that it takes 17 years on average for a healthy cell to become a cancer cell. We were wrong. It only takes minutes of isolation or loneliness for a cell to become cancerous. How does that happen? How does protein structures damage so quickly? There's many different types of injury probably involved, but a big one is this shikimate pathway, where this chemical glyphosate is seen to undermine the biology by blocking the aromatic amino acids, which are also part of the essential amino acids. 6 of the 9 essential amino acids that we have to get from our food system are disrupted by glyphosate. And so human cells cannot make those 9 of the 22 amino acids that we call essential. And so we have to get them from our food, because our food carries those amino acids made by bacteria, fungi, and plants. When we start spraying soil systems and plant systems with glyphosate, we disrupt this shikimate pathway and end up with this huge phenomenon of protein deficiency. That happens at the cellular level of humanity and this cancer epidemic, but it's also happening at the biologic level. This is looking from space down at that Mississippi River system. At the end of the Mississippi, here blown up on the left, is Louisiana, and you can see the dead zone in the oceans in red. That dead zone is now larger than the state of Rhode Island. The threatened zone here out into the light blues and all that is larger than the state of Texas. That dead zone is undermining millions and millions of dollars of fisheries as we kill coral reefs and fish populations across the coast of the Gulf of Mexico and Texas there. And that Gulf area is now blooming with algae that are trying to detox the water that's running off from the entire agricultural system of America. And so that dead ocean there is caused by nutrient overwhelm, glyphosate toxicity, and the algae is there to clean it up. When that blooms, there's no oxygen left in the water and the fish die. And that system now kills not just ocean, but also the river itself. This is the Mississippi running green with algae that are destroying the rivers and their biology there. This is looking from space, tracking that algae bloom. It turns out in 2011, it was starting to extend out into the ocean in a big way. It's now increased to 2018 being the last one in this image here, but you can see how explosive that is. And by 2014, we were hitting the Ivory Coast with this toxicity. And so we are now killing fisheries on the west coast of Africa from the runoff into the Gulf of Mexico from our agricultural system. And so this is a planetary injury that we're now inducing that is destroying ocean ecology. that was the data that spurred us on to create Farmers Footprint that you guys are now part of following with us. And Farmers Footprint has been there as a nonprofit organization to accelerate the universal adoption of regenerative land management for the health of people and the planet. And you guys have really helped us become a global phenomenon. It's been a real amazing thing for me to be in rural parts of Africa, rural parts of India in these recent months, and then more recently in Indonesia, to find out that people have been tracking Farmers Footprint and this story of glyphosate and regenerative agriculture for the last few years. So much so that we have groups of permaculture enthusiasts and everything else that are spawning groups as far flung as South Africa now to start regenerating their soil systems. And so it's been just a real humbling experience. But I want to zoom out here on this global scale to show you what we're planning in Africa as we start to go global with Farmers Footprint and the larger plan, which is called Project Biome, which is our 501c3 that houses Farmers Footprint. This is looking at planet Earth as a whole. And what you can see is the largest desert in the world is right here in North Africa. That desert is called the Sahara Desert. Did not used to be desert. It's really hard to imagine Earth in a different form than it is today. But just 1,000 years ago, this was one of the largest rainforests in the world. And so in written history, we can read the Roman accounts of North Africa in which they could march their soldiers from one side of North Africa to the other without seeing the light of day, without seeing sunshine, because the tree canopy was so dense. That rainforest was not limited to this area. It was also extended across Saudi Arabia and up into Russia and Siberia. What happened 1,500 years ago is the Roman Empire started to destroy the few river systems up here in North Africa. And they did that, interestingly, by salting the fields of their enemy. So they were pouring sea salts and other forms of inland salts into these soil systems to starve out their enemies. And then they would move in with their military and find no resistance because they had killed the food systems of the peoples they were invading. So they started on scale really destroying ecology from a war machine. And then they would move in with the Roman Empire and try to grow food that was no longer growing at enough volume because they had already depleted the soils of Italy and Northern Europe in their conquest of that region. So Rome got famous for extracting soil nutrients and damaging farmland in their effort to feed the biggest, the largest empire that had ever existed. As those river systems collapse in Africa, we see large-scale desertification happening there through North Africa, but then that wiped out the hydraulic system because that rainforest was helping produce the water cycle of Saudi Arabia, Russia, Siberia. And so with the loss of North Africa, we lost 1/3 of the planet in this action. And with that loss of 1/3 of the planet, we set the stage for today's climate crisis as we see the inability of our soil systems of the earth to reabsorb the carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange of the atmosphere. And for that, we are acidifying the oceans and seeing this sixth extinction really unfold. If you look at the last dense green band that is not seasonal, all the green that you see up here along, say, the north only exists in the very warmest months of the summer. Otherwise, this is all ice and snowpack in the northern hemisphere. And so the last dark greens that you see are here in South America and in Africa, but you can see that that band is contracting quickly because we're now seeing desertification of most of South America and of Southern Africa. And so it's really down to here in Africa, for example. This is DR Congo right in the center. This is one of the most dangerous places in the world from a human violence standpoint. And for all that violence of the Congo, we've actually seen the phenomenon of protection of this ecosystem because the chemical companies have been unable to move in here. The industrial agriculture has been unable to move into that zone. But that is changing quickly. This is a look at 2020. This is just a single day, 13th of September, 2020. The number of fires burning throughout Central South America and Central Africa. These fires actually burned from starting seemingly on the west coast of both continents and then burned over the course of a 4-month period to cover the entire central portions of these areas. And most of these fires were being burned or being started to eliminate indigenous forests, grasslands, and the like to make room for large-scale grazing and cropland to be installed. And so this is industrial farming making its path through fire. You can see the devastating consequences of this through soil ecology This is a collapse of North Africa here. You can see the reds that are coming on throughout these regions are very high risk for desertification now. And so we're going to see the continued loss of ecology throughout Africa, which is the largest lung left on this planet. We're also seeing a lot of urbanization in rural environments. This is looking at a desert that has appeared just in the last few years, and it's striking that this is a square desert that sits on the headwaters of the two rivers that feed the Kruger National Park in South Africa, which is significant because this holds 2/3 of the world's biodiversity in flora and fauna. And so this turns out to be just a rural city that was dropped in here to try to house displaced indigenous peoples and rural communities that were losing their food sovereignty. So they pushed them into an urbanization plan that desertified the headwaters of these two rivers that are now running dry. And so we are in real time seeing the disappearance of land. And so this is where we see evidence of farmers' footprint starting to affect this area. Farmers' footprint is now going to start moving into South Africa and other countries to partner with existing small groups on the ground that are starting a vision for reforesting these urban environments that are cropping up in these rural areas. These semi-urban plans can start to include food forests to create food sovereignty throughout these regions, as well as diminish the agricultural abuses that are happening on these lands. And so regenerative farming as a big piece of the puzzle here. But the exciting thing that we're seeing here as we start to look back at this planet and understand the planet in the context of the regenerative movement is that we have great evidence that we can actually rebuild a planet at a more vibrant rate than it's ever had. And that's because there's actually more resources for biodiversity to occur and for biology to occur. To get the green planet back, to regreen that whole North Africa, Saudi Arabia, up into Russia, to get that green again, all we need is 3 proven techniques to take a hold. One is very unique in that it requires very little human intervention. In fact, it's the removal of human intervention, and that is rewilding of river systems. Turns out when you return keystone species, as simple as the beavers in the United States, this was done in the deserts of the Southwest, where we were losing river and water systems, rivers were running dry. They reintroduced beavers, and within 3 years, you could see from space the regreening of these riverways. And so as simple as adding a keystone species like the beaver, or the same thing was done in Yellowstone National Park up north with the reintroduction of wolves, which don't seem to have anything to do with river systems, except when those wolves got put back in, they reignited the entire carbon cycle and therefore the water cycle of Yellowstone National Park by helping manage those wildlife systems more effectively, which of course manages soil systems more effectively. Well-managed soil systems where nature dictates the outcomes, every acre can hold 180,000 liters of water. And so it's a very immense amount of water reservoir that happens when soil systems start to be managed by wildlife again. In that area just north of Acorn Hook area in South Africa, I was just showing you, they've rewilded white lions, and the white lions have regenerated the land beneath their paws in just 15 years. And so it's really exciting to me that the first step is to allow nature back into her waterways. And by letting nature back into these waterways, we start back the water cycle on the planet, which is really the beginning of how biology happens. So carbon cycle by soil management, water cycle by river and soil transfer of that water into those systems is going to reignite this future that we can see. On the boundaries of those regenerated river systems, we can see a whole path of regenerative agriculture where farmers are trained to maximize biodiversity at the soil level. And they can do this by interseeding multi-species cover crops before they plant their cash crop, or during cash crop, they can get it interseeding between the rows of their cash crops. And they can start to create biologic and economic resources after the crop is harvested by returning that carbon back into soil systems through the advent of biochar technologies. So by taking the farm waste of sugar cane or rice straw or wheat straw that's currently being burned into the atmosphere, we can take that into biochar, which remediates the microbiology and the carbon resourcing of soil systems. And so rewilding rivers with regenerative agriculture, return to the carbon cycle into the biology at the end of the growing season, we get to see this opportunity for a green earth to occur. It's a unique moment in human history, but it's even a more unique history moment for the planet, in that there is more carbon dioxide available for those green plants to bring in to glucose and fatty acids and all the nutrients that would fuel a new planet than ever before in history. And the reason for that is, interestingly, the very chemical companies and oil and gas companies that have destroyed the ecology as we know it, they've also created the greatest opportunity in history. And so ExxonMobil, BP, all these massive conglomerates of oil that are sucking oil out of the deep within the earth and bringing those to the surface. It turns out that has actually given us the opportunity to grow the greenest planet in history, because we now have more carbon on the surface of the planet and in the air around the planet than we ever have before, which means as we learn to rewild and regenerate this planet, those plants are going to have access to a vitality of fuel, which is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is literally the fuel for biology. It's not oxygen, it's carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the fuel for the planet, and we have more of it available than ever in history on the surface and atmosphere of this planet. And so in a very bizarre way, the very thing that has killed the planet, our extraction of nutrients rather than enclosing it, could become the greatest gift to the green of this planet in the future. I believe that in the next million years, this planet will be more vibrant than it's ever been in its previous 4 billion years. And if humans have anything to do with it, we could take that million-year future and make it now. In these next few decades and in the centuries to come, we could see the greenest planet in the history of this planet for our understanding how to co-create nature rather than kill her. The excitement that I have around this goes far beyond just vitality of plant life. It has to do with how beautiful does this earth really get next? Because after every great extinction event that's happened in the planet, we've had 5 big ones preceding the current 6 that we're in, the planet always gets more beautiful. Think about this. Before the last extinction that happened 55 million years ago, the whole planet was covered in ferns and palms. Those were the 2 dominant flora that was on the planet. Extinction happens, most of those ferns and palms go extinct, a few species survive. But in the stress of that ecosystem collapse, all of the plant life on Earth made new viral transcripts, new genetic possibilities of life afterwards. And that's what a virus is. It's a new genetic potential. And so viruses are made by every cellular organism on the planet when there's stress. When stress occurs, the viruses are made for new genetic potential, new genetic opportunities for survival or life after death. And so the virome, the entire genetic library that existed on the planet after the last extinction, was the thing that seeded life towards its full potential. So the dominant animals on the earth before that were the reptiles with the palms and those ferns. We see the great extinction happen, and suddenly we have deciduous trees, wildflowers of every variety. Those did not exist without the stress of extinction. We go from reptiles to birds to mammals. Imagine the blue whale not existing, or imagine dolphins not existing. Those only existed because of the advances of nature through the genetic possibilities that were sequenced by life before the extinction. So as we see viruses explode on the planet right now, the number of viruses in the atmosphere are thought to be 10 to the 31 now. The number of 10 to the 31 is 1 with 31 zeros after it. That's more viruses than our stars in the entire universe. Same thing, 10 to the 31 viruses in ocean water, another 10 to the 30 viruses in the dirt beneath our feet. And so there is a literal, ocean of genetic potential that this planet has kicked out in these recent, centuries of stress as we prepare for the 6th extinction and the rebirth afterwards. And so we have an opportunity as a species, because we can see our own extinction coming and understand the mechanisms by which we've engineered that extinction, which is death of the topsoil, we can become part of that solution. And so when we have a regenerative revolution happening at Farmers Footprint, we're really talking about, can we advance the awareness, education, innovation, and the policy necessary to imagine a regenerative planet into its full reality? So Farmers Footprint is here to work with you to create this vibrant community globally that's going to reinvent this planet through the mechanisms of nature, through the laws of nature, to understand how natural law has seen its future only through the embracing biodiversity. And through biodiversity, we get adaptation. And for adaptation, we get more biodiversity. And this is the beautiful cycle of life, which is there to express the beauty of the planet at a richer and richer volume than we've ever seen before. And so it's been a joy to see the impact of this information globally. We have some of the most important, social change agents in history in Africa stepping behind this project now. And so we are excited to bring this to you in 2023. With your support, we're going to expand the Farmers Footprint teams globally. We've successfully seeded Farmers Footprint Australia. Thank you for all of you joining from Australia, perhaps. I just had such a wonderful couple of weeks there, touring around your East Coast there. I was in Byron Bay and up in Brisbane, and then down in Sydney, and then down to Melbourne. And what an incredible journey it was with so many of you in the community there. Talked to thousands of you there, and it was just a joy to see your support and your enthusiasm for this messaging. We all feel the potential of this future holds. In Africa, I'm just thrilled to be working with some of the most important change agents of the last century, those that helped end apartheid and some of the deep human abuses, are now seeing the fact that, while human rights are the beginning of the revolution, it's the rights of nature that need to be recognized now. And in recognizing humanity within our nature, we recognize a whole new opportunity, not just for biologic recovery, but a social recovery, to heal the wounds of the way in which not only have we treated the planet, but we've treated each other. The food system has long been built on the backs of slavery globally. Since way before human written history, slaves have been used to grow food. And so we need to reinvent agriculture on the level of a creative force rather than a slavery force. And in that creative force, we find out that nature and biology are the main agents of labor rather than humans. Humans doing regenerative agriculture find a lot of time to be witness to nature rather than the exploitation and extractors of nature. And so in a regenerative system, we find out not only is the economic benefits so much greater to the farmer, not only are the biologic results for the soil so much greater, the human results are so much greater because it needs less extractive abuses and nature starts to provide for us again. We need to heal the original wound of humanity, which is a belief of separation from nature. And the regenerative movement is right there on that button. We are here to heal that wound and realize we were never abandoned by nature, but we have been constantly invited back into her bosom as it is. And there's ultimately just infinite amount of biologic capacity this earth has to generate life here. And never before has there been so much viral potential for new genetics, new adaptation capacity, new varieties of life on earth to emerge in these coming millennia. And we get to be part of that if we choose. If we go extinct, and this happens to be our hospice moment as a 200,000-year-old species, and we got just a few decades left, so be it, but let's do it awake, right? Let's love each other into a beauty in these last few decades. And so this is less about judgment as to whether we succeed in averting the extinction or not. It's more about, can we see the beauty and therefore feel the love for a planet that has imagined us into her existence. And I'm just so grateful to be with you and start to wake up as a group to say, hey, you are beautiful. I am beautiful. Let's love each other into this new future. Let's feel this future together. And let's start to be witness to a journey into a green planet that has never expressed so much beauty before. So grateful to be with you. I want to give you an opportunity to meet Leah. Leah is one of our star features here at Farmers Footprint. Leah Marcevich, thank you so much for being with us. This organization would not be the same without this woman who has traveled not just our country, but now the world, and bringing stories to life. And you have brought so many farms to life with your storytelling, Leah, and you've really brought us to a higher and higher level of joy and enthusiasm and passion for what we do here at Farmers Footprint over the many years you've been working with us. So thank you for doing what you've done, but I'm excited for all of you in the audience to get to know Leah here, the woman behind the camera that's brought so many extraordinary stories. But Leah is here to give us a glimpse of what's happened over the last couple years of Farmers Footprint by your support. It's through your support that all of this has become possible. So every minute she's on the road, she is funded by your efforts and by your generous support. So we're asking for you to accelerate that because the projects that we have outlined for 2023 are going to dwarf our previous impact as we really keep stepping into our stride. So Leah, thanks for being with us. Honored to have you present what you got.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zach Bush. It's an honor to do this work alongside you. I always feel so appreciative and seen. So I'm Leah, like mentioned, and I've been with the team for about 3.5 years, and I've had the greatest honor of traveling the country to document the farmers and land and sea stewards. On a personal note, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I thought to myself, okay, what would be my dream job? And it was to document farmers. And then lo and behold, I meet Dr. Zach at a dinner a few years later, and here we are. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And I wanted to just amplify the Farmers Footprint team. Jesse, if you want to share the slides now. This work is a collection of so many brilliant individuals that make up Farmers Footprint. And, we were sharing on a call recently in tears of just gratitude that we get to do this work and that we wake up every day so excited to get on Zoom and discuss the possibilities we can create in regards to regeneration. So this is most of the Farmers Footprint team. We have about 3 or so more people that aren't in this photo. But yeah, we were also in tears of just pure gratitude, to be able to work with farmers. So next slide. I don't know if the video works. Jesse, you want to play the video? In the meantime, and again, just to reiterate, this team is so passionate about this work we're doing. We are many in body, but one in mind. And there's some beauty that's happened when your personal life and growth and your career, those boundaries start to dissipate. And you are just all working toward the same mission, and so much power and beauty is created through that. And you guys are part of this community. So I wanted to thank you all. If you've been our financial partners or plan to be, we really appreciate your support to make this work possible, because we have really big visions and dreams for the next coming years. All right, we will skip the video unless Jesse, is it working?
No, it's not coming through.
All good. Okay. I was just going to share a little video of some of our farmers, but that's not needed. I wanted to start by, so I'm located in San Diego, which is on Kumeyaay land. And what I've learned is that in Kumeyaay culture, the storyteller is one of the most revered and important people in that society. They're oftentimes elders, and young children from the age of 5 and 6 start to study to become storytellers for their whole life. And stories are often told at nighttime because the spiritual energies in the night are active and present. And, storytellers will often fast for 4 days before telling a really big and important story, like a creation story. They won't eat meat. They won't eat fats. So it's a really, big role and responsibility. And that's something that's in all of our DNA as humans. We've evolved alongside the stories that we shared to deeper understand the ecologies that we live amongst. And so at Farmers Footprint, we take this role of storytellers with so much joy and so much responsibility to share those stories of farmers and those stories of hope, because we really believe in the potential storytelling has to shift and transform our societies, our behaviors, our culture, right? And so with that, I want to share some stories I've experienced on the ground with the farmers, because, there's the bigger picture of the kind of intangible effects that storytelling has on a people and a place. But there's also some really tangible impacts we've witnessed through our stories that it has on the farmers directly. So meet Olivia Watkins if you haven't yet. She was our Meet a Farmer feature a few years ago. And she normally takes about 3 to 4 months to sell out of her shiitake mushrooms that she grows in the forest on her family's land. And after her Meet a Farmer feature, she sold out in 24 hours. So that is like a huge success for her business through just the simple act of sharing her story and exposing that story to all of you guys in our audience, and just really connecting between the eaters who are consuming food and those growing it. So yeah, that was a great win, huge tangible impact for Olivia. And we see that with all our Meet a Farmers, all the stories we share, there's a direct correlation with how their business is expanded, their CSAs, boxes are increasing, really phenomenal impact for them. And then the next one is of the sweet Samantha Fox. And Samantha is an incredible human being. She's a mother, a farmer, a beekeeper, entrepreneur. And we had such a great time. I was at her home here photographed. She has her garden in the back and her bees and chickens. And then she has another location with her larger farm and her farm stand. And, you know, I was asking her questions and interviewing her and taking all these photos. And I was just so excited. So I went straight back to the hotel. I edited all the photos and I called back Samantha and I said, will you please meet with me again? I need to show you these photos. So we sat down together and we're thumbing through all these photos, and she starts to have tears in her eyes. And she turns to me and she says, wow, I never knew I was so beautiful and so powerful. And to be able to hold up a mirror and remind these farmers while they're every day doing such gruesome work. I mean, it's dirty and hard and they're in the sun, and, you know, in a system that doesn't inherently value them. The industrial food system doesn't value farmers. And so to be able to witness Samantha seeing herself in her full power and her full beauty for the first time I was just speechless. And we've witnessed that with many farmers too, you know, to just be able to hold up a mirror and just remind them, you are beautiful, you are powerful, look at what you were doing. So those are kind of more on those intangible impacts of these stories that we're sharing, and to provide farmers this living documentation of the work they're doing leaves them with such a sense of pride, you know, and like this boost of energy they get of like, oh yeah, okay, like keep going. So that's been so transformative for the farmers and for me, to just, yeah, be of witness to that beauty that they are and that they often forget they are. And the last story is of Miss Maria Catalan. And Maria Catalan is the first migrant farm worker turned farm owner. And she doesn't own the land yet, but she owns her farm, which is huge. And her story is absolutely incredible. We were about to launch Maria's Meet a Farmer feature, and then we realized she didn't have a website. She didn't have any online presence. So once we told her story, we didn't want it to end there. These stories are catalysts to further connect you to these farmers, to, you know, order their CSA or donate to their projects. So the team gathered and whipped out a beautiful website minutes before her feature launched. There's a donate button that leads to a GoFundMe that we helped her start as well, because Maria's dream was to start her own nonprofit to support other farm workers in her position to get their organic certification and to help give them loans for land. And so through that fundraiser, through her website, she was able to raise money to start her own nonprofit, Pequeños Agricultores in California. And we refreshed her logo. And yeah, you know, farmers really don't have the time, or they shouldn't be on their computer figuring out how to market themselves. So they should be in the field farming. So we've alleviated that huge pressure off their shoulders. So many farmers have shared, you know, what a struggle it is to figure out how to do a website, you know. So that is the team, our expertise at the Farmers Footprint team, storytelling and this digital marketing. And yeah, we've just, whenever we offer this service to farmers, they're just floored of like, really, you can help me with that? Oh my gosh, thank you. It's saving them so much time to be able to actually farm. And then you see the ripple effects of, you know, the donation. Now you can order Maria's CSA online, which wasn't an opportunity before. So many benefits to her personal life and her business through this. So what happened through this was we created a whole program at Farmers Footprint called The Nest, which we launched last month. We've been working on this for the past year. We've helped 7 different farmers and counting with any digital assets they need. So Jesse, next slide, please. So here are just a few I'll walk us through. Fight Cattle Company, we refreshed their logo and designed this beautiful poster they're able to put in their local grocery store so people know about them and what they're doing. Next slide. And from Dell directly, he says, being featured in Farmers Footprint and part of the nest not only gave us tangible returns via the marketing components, which are top shelf and are an amazing way to elevate what we are doing on a local level, to being positioned to go after larger markets as our product volumes allow. Farmers Footprint helps the cause by leaps and bounds with their important and imperative ways of communicating. Salvatierra Farms, these are just a few to preview. Yeah, next slide. They didn't have a website at all, so we started that one from scratch. Indigenous Regeneration, refreshed their website, new logo. And Lacey shares, I felt listened to and like our brand was brought into the light and have showcased in a way I couldn't have done on my own. The team made me feel proud of my organization and what we have done in 5 years. I'm so grateful for such a useful blessing to our organization and mission. So on that note, that's just, one program out of many that we're doing to really support farmers directly. Yeah, and so I want to end, or we'll transition back to Dr. Zach, with first asking, 2 questions. And the first is, do you believe a reality beyond the one we currently experience is possible? So in order to really have regeneration everywhere in our life active, we need to first imagine what that possibility could be. So whether you take time today or tomorrow or in the coming weeks to really just close your eyes and reflect, when you imagine a reality beyond the one we currently experience, a regenerative future, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Let's start to have those dialogues of what this thing we're talking about actually tastes like and feels like and looks like in our own lives and our own families. Regeneration isn't just a farming practice, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of life, of connecting with ourselves, with each other, with the land. And so next slide. So if you do believe there's another reality possible, what needs to change in your life to embody and participate in regeneration? We all are part of this. We all have micro changes we can make in our lives to embody and participate in regeneration, whether you are starting your own little backyard garden or even just growing basil in a pot. From those micro moments to maybe being a financial partner with us at Farmers Footprint and donating, to joining our online community. We have thousands of people in our online community. It is buzzing and vibrant and alive in there. I highly encourage you to join. If any of these topics excites you, there's a home for that excitement where you can network and connect and engage with people and start projects or meet people that are maybe in your community who have the same mission of human and planetary health. So yeah, just a question to leave you on, to reflect on what needs to change in your life to embody and participate in regeneration. And if you are one of our financial partners, donors, we are selecting a handful of our most committed partners in this work to have a chance for more intimate conversations with Dr. Zach Bush to expand upon the possibilities that encapsulate connecting the regeneration in 2023. So that is all I have today. I'll pass it back to you, Zach.
Thank you, Leah, for all of that, and for all of you reacting to that is exactly appropriate, because it truly is spectacular to see this body of work. You can't underestimate, the impact of the nest. Like each of these, farmers that are suddenly equipped with this new company, it doesn't just affect their day-to-day business, it affects generations. What we've seen all the way back to the very first family that we featured in our documentary back at the beginning of our efforts in 2018, we filmed it in 2017. In that next 24 months, they radically expanded their farm. They more than tripled the amount of land under management, and the younger generation came back to the farm to help them invigorate a new direct consumer marketplace and build social media and everything else. And so it's really exciting to see that we're not talking about just improving some sort of bottom line for a farmer. We're talking about reinvigorating a farm culture where generations to come start to see a viable future that is rewarding to be part of a community rather than just part of a cog in a machine of an industrial food system. And so when we see the success of the nest touching these families, we're really generating a future that could be going out 40 generations, and that's really our passion. Is when we reconnect, we are doing regeneration. That's now become my one word definition of regeneration, is reconnection. We are reconnecting ourselves to the possibility of verdant futures through the generations that see a joy in their parents, that are starting to really enjoy farming for the first time in generations. You're no longer waking up in the morning to mix a chemical stew to spray out there in your hazmat suit. You're instead out there watching earthworms return to your soils, watching birds return to the air, starting to see fox and coyotes in the fields again, and starting to really enjoy the vibrant return of nature. That's regeneration. It's not about a one thing, and that we can do that with social media and a website. That's an amazing demonstration of how technology can be used for a brighter future. And so when you guys donate, keep in mind that it only costs about 10 grand, 15 grand for us to completely change the trajectory of a multi-generational farm. And so with these small amounts of money, we can really make just extraordinary seismic changes in the futures of this country and beyond, as we start to imagine a regenerative food system that is a underpinning of a regenerative society for the future. So thank you for supporting. We'd ask you to join us. You can give today by joining us at farmersfootprint.us, farmersfootprint.org.au if you're in Australia listening. But we are very excited to accelerate the projects of this next year. Renurse Studios and other spin-outs that have been happening from Farmers Footprint are really laying the foundation as we start to realize that it's not just farmers that need to change to create this regenerative future. We need every stakeholder within the food system to be part of the solution. Because right now, if a farmer goes and does the right thing by their soil, she starts to create an energetic center there on her farm. It's very difficult for her to connect that back to a larger food system that has become so centralized in its mechanisms of storage, transportation, distribution, and sales and ingredient pathways and all that, that product cannot get to market in its value-added fashion. And so we have to reimagine every step of that stakeholder path, from CPG companies down to the farmer, all the way through financial districts, banking systems. Everybody has to become part of this solution. So whatever industry you're in, you can be part of that global solution for a regenerative future. And it's going to take somebody like you reimagining your sector of industry to become part of that solution. We have to stop thinking of regeneration as a farming practice and realize it as an ecosystem change, a systems change at the universal level of humanity for this to occur. And so you are a relevant part of that change. You are a relevant change maker to that, regardless of your industry, whether you be a nurse, a doctor, a farmer, a banker, engineer, whatever it is, you are part of the solution there. And if you don't reimagine your industry, somebody else is going to have to come along later to do it. And so we got to be part of that transformation from where we sit, and each of you sit in a unique position to be part of that. So we're very grateful to have you with us. We look forward to your continued support for 2023 as we continue to accelerate globally. We're hoping to launch Farmers Footprint UK and Farmers Footprint South Africa in 23. So the donations you give us today seed our opportunity to continue to expand globally as we envision Project Biome, a vision for a future where the whole planet becomes a regenerative force. And we realize a beauty on this planet that has never been seen before. And you are part of that. So for seeing your beauty in being part of this community with us, we have this experience of love. So we love you. We love all the hearts floating through here on this event today with you. Thank you for all 700 that joined us live, and the thousands of you that will see this recording. We're excited to power this up together. Let's change this future together. Let's be a part of this. For those of you with a company or a family that's ready to be part of this regenerative future, making a large donation at the end of the year will get you on my list of phone calls to make sure that I am listening to you, to hear what your vision is for being this regenerative mechanism and part of that stakeholder solutioning for 2023. So get your donations in and reserve some time so that I can listen to you to figure out what you're up to. That would get us excited about storytelling and partnering with you for a future that's there. So join in, jump in, and let's get this thing going for 2023. Thank you, Jesse Gardner, always behind the scenes, making all of this a reality. You are our patron saint at Farmers Footprint. Thank you, Bjorn, for your brilliant work in the arts, as well as the rest of the entire Farmers Footprint team. Each of you are so brilliant in what you do to bring this thing forward. Thank you, David Leon, for your leadership over the years and bring this to fruition. We congratulate you on your next chapter as we envision the next processes of Biome Capital and the other spin-out successes of Farmers Footprint. We're just so excited about the way this ecosystem is expanding. We're going beyond Farmers Footprint to realize a whole landscape of for-profit and nonprofit entities that are creating this regenerative future. Thank you, all of you. Look forward to introducing you to more of who we are in 23. But in the meantime, enjoy your holidays and let's celebrate one heck of a new year coming in which this regenerative revolution accelerates. Blessings on all of you.